So after a Week 1 victory over the New York Jets, it's time to give our breakdown of what we have coming up against the New Orleans Saints. You're listening to Money in the Bank. So with our opponent being the New Orleans Saints and seeing what they did to Aaron Rodgers last week, let's clear the air here. They're not beating teams 38-3 on a weekly basis, and what happened in Green Bay is, I'm going to say it's an aberration. I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers on week-to-week basis won't play that bad, and Jameis Winston won't on a week-to-week basis throw for under 200 yards and 5 touchdowns. So I think we all got to clear the air there. Now, looking at what we have offensively, the Carolina Panthers have enough weapons on the outside and at skill positions and at running back, of course, with Christian McCaffrey being back. Sam Darnold played competent football, and that's all we can ask for. I was satisfied with the performance of Sam Darnold and what he gave. And it put forth, for me, it was a positive sign moving forward. Can he continuously take care of the football, which has been the biggest question about Sam Darnold throughout this entire summer, is him and taking care of the football. He did that in Week 1, so I will applaud him. And he showed flashes. He showed flashes on a couple throws. There were 2 throws in particular that he made that were 3. There were 2 to DJ Moore that were vertical down the field over plus 30 yards plus, maybe 20 yards plus, and the long ball to Robbie Anderson. He showed what we signed him for and what we didn't have last year in Teddy Bridgewater. So again, he at least gave me a glimpse of why we took the plunge on him. And, and can he continuously grow in these performances? That's the biggest thing for Sam Darnold. And this is a big test for him. That New Orleans defense is good. It is solid enough, and our offensive line is still very much questionable. So, and with the offensive line being the biggest question mark here, let's go ahead and talk about that. So, at offensive line, at this point, I'm just like this. There's no way that Deontay Brown and Brady Christensen could be any worse than Pat Elflein and Cam Irving. We knew they were bargain bin hires from the beginning. We go shopping in the Goodwill for designer clothes and we get this. This is what we get. We get an offensive line that struggled against the Steelers' second team in the final preseason game. We get an offensive line that gets dominated by the New York Jets, who is not a defense that's going to be the best you see all year. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have a group right now that can help us elevate. Right now that's going to keep us from winning. I picked us around 7-10, I think, during our preseason picks. That's about where we're going to fall, because we don't have an offensive line that's going to allow us to do any more damage than that. You know what I'm saying? So Matt Rule in this team, they have to look at what did you draft? Because they've done well in the draft. The thing about this new regime that I really appreciate is that they've done well in the draft. They drafted well defensively. They drafted well offensively at skill positions. They gotta trust the fact that you drafted Brady Christensen and Deontay Brown, and trust the fact that Pat Elflein and Cam Irving are not the future. It's a reason why they bounced around the league thus much, and why you paid such a low price for them. You get what you pay for in this league. That's the one thing about the NFL that I can say. You get what you pay for. You pay cheap. You pay for cheap tickets. You get bad seats. You pay cheap for players. You get low production. This is pretty much what we're seeing right now. And let's give Sam Darnold a fair shake, man. Last year we didn't give Teddy Bridgewater the offensive line excuse much last year. At least I knew it was there, but I didn't really give him that excuse. So, I don't want to have another year with a new quarterback and still say the offensive line failed the quarterback. We're looking at Sam Darnold's only 24 years old. We're looking at him to possibly be the guy to move on with in the future and possibly build the rest of his team around him. Let's give him a fair shake. There's no reason for us to be sitting here wondering, can our offensive line hold up for our quarterback, and think we're think we're going to get a proper evaluation of said quarterback. It's just not fair to anybody involved. It's not fair to the fans. It's not fair to Sam. It's just not fair. It's just not a good way to move forward with this franchise and think you're building a championship team and a championship culture. So let's fix that. Let's fix it. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, we got exactly what I expected. This defensive group has improved week to week throughout the preseason, throughout training camp, and they did exactly what they were supposed to do against an opponent that we thought was inferior. They dominated. That's what you're supposed to do. I can't take too much away from everything that happened, but you did what you were supposed to do. That lets me know Phil Snow's coaching this group up to a standard, and that defense is playing to that standard right now. So kudos there. Biggest question mark we have right now is the back end, of course. I mean, and it's really safety. Cornerback, I feel confident about putting DJ Moore out, not DJ Moore, but Dante Jackson out there. I feel confident about putting J.C. Horn out there. He's a young rookie that's going to compete, and he's got all the athleticism in the world to be able to compete against the best guys. So I don't worry about those two as much. The back end, with now Miles Hartfield being out, so I don't really know what. I mean, Justin Burris played some. I don't really understand the safety situation. I won't lie. Jeremy Chin being at free is pretty much all I can pretty much gather. And look, I'm not the biggest buff on all these things, so I have to go back and do my research and take a look at some of these things, take a gander. Here's the thing. The biggest thing here is this. What in God's name are we gonna do at that safety position when we get against the good teams? You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where I'm worried about. Justin Burris playing at strong safety, Jeremy Chan playing at the free. We saw a lot, and we saw Miles Hartfield in those nickel packages. Biggest thing we need to see now is AJ Bouye coming back after week. Of course he'll be back for week 3 against the Houston Texans. So I think that'll help us out a lot with Miles Hartfield going down. What do we expect to see from Jameis Winston? That's the biggest thing here. And our offensive line, their offensive line matching back against our defensive line. The biggest thing here is that we have to win in the trenches. Jack, my co-host Jack always tells it. These games are won and lost in the trenches, and that's exactly where it's going to be won and lost at this week. Do you dominate the fronts? Biggest thing here. Derek Brown, Daquan Jones, Brian Burns, Arturo Gross-Matos, Morgan Fox, all those guys that played last week and that had an impact. Can they generate the same amount of pressure? Look, I'm gonna tell you this right now. The one thing you can take away from that 5 touchdown performance is that most of those were in the red zone. So one thing we do know about this New Orleans Saints offense under Jameis Winston, they're gonna be able to finish in the red zone. One thing we do know about this New Orleans Saints offense under Jameis Winston is that they're gonna be able to stretch the field. So you do know your back end's gonna have to be able to hold up, in your front seven is gonna have to apply pressure. I feel confident about the linebacking core now, seeing that Shaq Thompson, he reverted back to his Washington days. So if that's the case, if Shaq Thompson's having that type of year, that's another guy I really need to touch on. The fact that he looked like he finally took the next step into being the leader and being the best, one of the best players on this defense in last week's game was huge. And again, it's a lesser opponent, but it's a step in the right direction. If Shaq Thompson's play continues to elevate, I expect to see this defense continue to rise, man. And the biggest thing here is that they're gonna have to be at their best. Now, I still have questions about Hassan Reddick's fit in within this defense when we get against teams like New Orleans. That offensively are gonna kind of wear us thin. That's a question mark to me as well. That outside linebacker spot with Hassan Reddick, just because of fit, not because of ability, just because of fit and what we're asking him to do. We're kind of asking him to be more of a traditional linebacker, and I just can't see how that's beneficial to him, considering he's a better pass rusher than most. So but ultimately, the battle's gonna be won in the trenches. Can our offensive line protect? Because our skill position guys are going to be able to do what I just don't think that there are many secondaries that can lock us up on the back end, in the back end, if we have the requisite time and everything. Biggest thing here is that Sam's going to have to be able to throw under duress. He threw well under duress last week. He's going to have to do it again. So let's hope he plays up to NFL level standards. But it's time to get into the final predictions. So with my final pick, don't be surprised. I'm gonna take the New Orleans Saints. I took them in this past week's episode. I'm gonna take them there again. I can't remember the score I gave, but I'd probably say I'd say 27-21. I think it may be a different score than what I gave on the podcast, but I think it's around the same. Around a 6-point swing. Expect us to get. I expect New Orleans to probably jump out to an early lead, and we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight and claw our way back into a tight ball game. But the offensive line to me will be just too much for us to overcome. If they can't play well, and our defense doesn't start out fast and start out and create turnovers and keep that New Orleans offense at bay, I can see us trailing for the majority of this game and having to try to claw our way back into it late. So I'll take New Orleans for the win. But do not be disturbed. I do think we'll have a good showing, and I hope so. But be sure to follow us at PWN_network on all social media platforms, Instagram and Twitter. Be sure to follow me at Tease_30 if you want to contact me to get on an episode. We're having fan hosts now, baby. Again, we want to talk to y'all. So if you want to do that, contact PWN_network on Instagram and Twitter, and me at Tease_30. And I'm out.